Hi, this clip is for anyone who wants a bit of assistance reading through all of the text that's in this document. So basically, I'm just going to read through what's written on here and point out a few of the things that I'd like you to pay attention to. So the main thing this document is about is the long-term causes of World War One. So we use an acronym to help us remember what those main causes were, and that acronym is the word MAIN. So the acronym comes from the M from militarism, the A from alliances, the I from imperialism, and the N for nationalism. So what we're going to do is we're going to scroll over here and have a look at imperialism. Imperialism is the policy of one country extending its territories to create an empire, usually for financial and strategic reasons. European powers such as Britain, Spain, France and Portugal had colonised much of the world between the 15th and the 19th centuries. By the late 19th century, European nations were involved in another surge of imperialism, often called the Scramble for Africa. The main rivals in the race were Britain, France and Germany. Britain had the largest colonial empire with colonies all over the world. France also had colonies across the globe. Germany, however, had only been a unified nation since 1871 and was still trying to build a large colonial empire when war broke out. Kaiser Wilhelm II, ruler of Germany, was eager to add to German colonies. In 1905 and again in 1911, Germany attempted to block further colonial expansion by France by sending troops to take control of French colonies in North Africa. Both times France, with support from Britain, resisted and defeated Germany. So if you come over and have a little look at this cartoon here, this cartoon is showing us a pictorial representation of that idea of the scramble for Africa. And you'll have a look around each of these people, which represent countries. So you have Italy, Portugal, Spain, France. Can't quite read each one, but they'll represent Germany, Great Britain, all those countries that were mentioned in there. Now we're going to have a look at the N part of our acronym, the nationalism. Put simply, nationalism is a sense of pride in and love of one's country. It grows out of an understanding that the people of a nation share a common language, culture and history. In Europe, nationalism played an important part in the lead-up to World War I. Nationalism can either divide or unite the people of a region. For example, feelings of nationalism contributed to the unification of many small Germanic kingdoms to form the German Empire in 1871. A sense of nationalism also encouraged cooperation between Germany and Austria-Hungary, because German language speakers ruled both empires. Nationalism also played a role in the Federation of Australia's 6 separate colonies in 1901. Bosnia-Herzegovina is an area in southeastern Europe known as the Balkans. In the years before the war, it had been under the control of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, but it was made up of many different ethnic groups who didn't see themselves as culturally, historically, or ethnically linked to Austria-Hungary. Most of the people of Bosnia-Herzegovina wanted to join with Serbia to form their own nation. Russia had been supporting their moves, and this is how Russia was drawn into the dispute when a Serbian youth was accused of assassinating the Austrian Archduke. Before we leave this page to go to the next one, I just want to draw your attention to this cartoon here. So in this one we have 2 faces who are blowing air onto some kindling. All these pieces of wood to start a fire. So all the pieces of wood that we have down here, we have the Triple Alliance, we have colonial rivalry, like we just talked about with imperialism. We talked about the alliances. This is the Balkans here, which is what we just talked about with Bosnia, Herzegovina. And then we have the Triple Entente here, which is, of course, the other alliance, the other main alliance. We have Bosnia down here. So we have Alsace-Lorraine, which is an area of France that was given to Germany during the Franco-Prussian War, which France was very annoyed about. And the oxygen here that is being used to start this fire with all this kindling is the arms race, which is dealing with militarism, which we'll see on the next page, and the nationalist movements that we just talked about, that feeling of nationalism. Okay, so this page deals mainly with alliances and militarism. Alliances, we only have a really short little bit here because we did some significant note-taking on alliances in the first lesson. It can be difficult to tell the difference between cause and effect, as often there is a circular pattern. Just an idea to keep in your mind when you're thinking about cause and effect. So we're going to start down here. Alliances were formed as protection against invasion by members of another alliance, a sort of security against war. The reality is that they actually made it longer and widespread. When a dispute evolved between Russia and Austria-Hungary after the assassination of the Archduke, all six powers and their empires were drawn into the conflict. Militarism, the arms race in Europe. No war can be fought without guns, ammunition and soldiers. In the early 20th century, modern battleships and submarines were also important weapons of war. Despite claims of European powers that they were not preparing for war, most were training armies and building up their stores of ships and weapons. Germany and Britain were the leading players. Britain had the largest navy, but was still pouring millions of pounds into ships and armaments. Germany was economically powerful and had a large army. Its leader, Kaiser Wilhelm II, wanted to establish Germany as a world power, so he poured resources into strengthening the German armed forces. By early 1914, even though the leaders were talking of peace, they were preparing for war. Now, the images we have on this page, this first one here is dealing with the alliances, and if you look closely you can see what each of these things are saying. So basically you have a long line of people. This one here saying, if you touch me, I'll, and this guy, next guy is saying, if you make a move, I'll. And then over here we have, if you hurt that little fella, I'll. And this one says, if you touch my friend, I'll. And then it goes along, as you can see. So each of these people are representing people in the alliance and what actually happened in the beginning. Okay, our next picture that we want to look at here, this one here is a German picture, and it's using the map of Europe, and as you can see, this here is Russia, Germany, and you can go around there and you can see all of the pictures. Really cleverly made, this Italy. Our next one over here is cause and effect, and this was what we talked about here with the circular motion. So we have some causes of World War I, and we can see how they play into each other. So we have nationalism and imperialism, how they can lead to each other. The arms race can come from that as well. Alliances, forming back in and again in that circular motion. Alright, so the next couple of pages are just a story, and basically it's a story that was written just to illustrate what the beginning of World War One was like and what happened during World War One. So this story is a metaphor. It's saying that World War One, if World War One was a bar fight, this is what it would look like. Just move it up here. Germany, Austria and Italy are standing together in the middle of a pub when Serbia bumps into Austria and spills Austria's pint. Austria demands Serbia buy it a whole new suit because of the new beer stains on its trouser leg. Germany expresses its support for Austria's point of view. Britain recommends that everyone just calm down a bit. Serbia points out that it can't afford a whole new suit but offers to pay for the cleaning of Austria's trousers. Russia and Serbia look at Austria. Austria asks Serbia who it's looking at. Russia suggests that Austria should leave its little brother alone. Austria inquires as to whose army will assist Russia in doing so. Germany appeals to Britain that France has been looking at it and that it's sufficiently out of order that Britain not intervene. Britain replies that France can look at who it wants to and that Britain is looking at Germany too, and what is Germany going to do about it? Germany tells Russia to stop looking at Austria or Germany will render Russia incapable of such action anymore. Britain and France ask Germany whether it's looking at Belgium. Turkey and Germany go off into a corner and whisper. When they come back, Turkey makes a show of not looking at anyone. Germany rolls up its sleeves, looks at France, and punches Belgium. France and Britain punch Germany. Austria punches Russia. Germany punches Britain and France with one hand and Russia with the other. Russia throws a punch at Germany but misses and nearly falls over. Japan calls over from the other side of the room that it's on Britain's side but stays there. Italy surprises everyone by punching Austria. Australia punches Turkey and gets punched back. There are no hard feelings because Britain made Australia do it. France gets thrown through a plate glass window but gets back up and carries on fighting. Russia gets thrown through another one, gets knocked out, suffers brain damage and wakes up with a complete personality change. Italy throws a punch at Austria and misses, but Austria falls over anyway. Italy raises both fists in the air and runs around the room chanting. America waits till Germany's about to fall over from sustained punching from Britain and France, then walks over and smashes it with a bar stool, then pretends it won the fight all by itself. By now, all the chairs are broken and the big mirror over the bar is shattered. Britain, France and America agree that Germany threw the first punch, so the whole thing is Germany's fault. While Germany is still unconscious, they go through its pockets, steal its wallet, and buy drinks for all their friends. The end. Or is it? Okay, so we've read through the bits of information that are on this document, and now these are the questions. So what you were asked to do for homework was to answer 4 out of these 5 questions. So we have, how would you sum up the situation in Europe around 1900? Explain your answer. In your own words, explain the term nationalism, noting both negative and positive features. Why was Germany's colonial empire so much smaller than Britain's? Next we have, does an arms race necessarily mean that a war is likely? Just give reasons for your answer. Next, we have closely examine the images used in this document. Discuss what you think the learning intention of each image is. Do the images assist with your understanding of the topic? And finally, for the arty, draw a cartoon for our classroom based on the story If World War I Was a Bar Fight.